Welcome. You're watching the Moody Lawyer. Justice served with experience and integrity.
Hello and welcome to the Moody Lawyer with Attorney Josh Moody. With a rich background in law enforcement and a comprehensive legal career spanning criminal justice, personal injury, and civil matters, Josh offers a unique perspective on navigating the complexities of the legal system. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is Recovering with Ease, Managing Legal Complexities While You Heal. Josh, great to see you again.
Good to see you, Kevin.
How do you manage the communication between clients, medical professionals, insurance companies, all of this so that your clients don't feel overwhelmed?
When you come into my office and you get in an accident and you're injured, I always tell people your job is to get better. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not going to tell you what to do or what not to do. You need to either get yourself as good as you were before the accident or get as good as you're going to get as the doctors can get you. So that's your job. I have a very hands-off approach when it comes to doctors, when it comes to treatment. I tell people, you make the decision that's best for you. You do what's best for you because you got to live with it. You got to live with the injuries. It's going to affect you the rest of your life. It's your case, and I will deal with everything after that. It's my job to get you what's yours, is what you're entitled to. It's my job to worry about all the bills. It's my job to worry about your car. So you put that on me. So that way, all you have to do is worry about getting better. And then once you're better, then we have more of a working relationship of where we're at and what we do. So that's kind of my philosophy. I'm not going to sit there and tell a person, hey, if you do this, maybe your case is worth more, maybe it's worth less. You have to make decisions that's best for you, your body, your life.
Is it difficult sometimes to keep the client informed without overwhelming them with legal jargon or too many details, especially when they're healing and trying to get better? And what steps do you take to make sure that you balance that effectively?
So in the beginning too, when you're going through treatment or you're seeing your doctors and you're going, if you get surgery or if you're going through rehab, you're going to know more about that than I do because I'm not getting an update from the doctors. We get updates from the doctors when you're done. They send us a report and then that's when we finally get it. So your clients are more than free to call us and keep us updated. So that way we keep a record of where you're going and when you're going. So that way, when we do order your records, we know what we're getting into, or that way we're not missing anything. For me, we have to keep the communication lines open after that, because that's when I start getting involved. And that's when when things start happening, when we start talking to the insurance adjuster, when we do file a lawsuit, when we do get the lawsuit served, when we do have discovery to go through. Those are things that I have to tell the client because the client won't know unless I keep them informed. But at the beginning of a case, the client knows a lot more about the injuries and the treatment than I do, because what I know at that point is I deal more with the fault, the legal fault, the legal aspect, and the property damage part while they're going through treatment.
What are some of the challenges that you see clients face when they're trying to juggle their recovery and manage a personal injury claim?
The toughest thing, and it's really hard, is taking time off work to go to treatment. That's the biggest thing. And that's really hard. And it's really, there's a lot of juggling going on because, a lot of times people want to go to work. They don't want to miss work, even if they're still hurting, even if they're still in pain, but they still need to get paid. Even if they're still in pain, they still need that paycheck because you're not going to get your settlement for quite a while. So that's the toughest thing, is people who need to take time off work to manage their treatment and see their doctors. But that's why you got to find doctors who can work around your schedule, see, late in the evening, early in the morning. So that's probably the biggest thing for people is time off work, because you typically don't get reimbursed for your time off work to go for your treatment in a personal injury accident.
Yeah, very good point. Do you have an example of a case where making sure your clients could take more of a hands-off approach help them recover more smoothly, physically and financially?
Not really a specific one. Like I said, it's more of a philosophy. So that way, and sometimes when a person comes in and doesn't seem like they have a great case, but then their doctor orders more tests and they find out there's a tear or some type of surgery is required, and then that elevates the value of the case because you find out that, there's a slipped disc or, a ruptured disc in their back or neck. But again, that's not me telling them what to do. That's just them going through the medical process, going through their health insurance, going through their doctors. And I feel good when I tell the defense that this is what they did. I don't have to tell the defense, well, I told them to do it to make their case worth more. This is what this person did, and this is what this person felt like they had to do to get better. And that's far better than trying to, when attorneys tell clients that, hey, you should do this or you should do that, and that'll make your case more valuable. And that means we'll talk to you more if your case is more valuable. Mm-hmm. Which here we don't care if we treat everybody the same, whether it's a big case or a little case. We stay in just as much contact with you as the big, the little cases as we do with the big cases.
Is it difficult for you to take care of all the legal complexities and all the things that have to happen in a case when your client is hurting and really having a hard time physically and emotionally?
No, we have a real good staff here. We have secretaries who work up front. We have a paralegal who handles our caseloads for cases in litigation, for trials, for motions. So we have a real good staff here that definitely help me, that keep me updated and keep our clients updated, because I'm not in the office every day. I'm in court a lot. Typically don't get back to the office till late afternoon. Like I said, my staff here is great. Everybody who comes into the office knows them up front. The doctors, the medical doctors, they know our staff up front. They know who's here when they come in. So my staff really keeps me on my toes and make sure that we have good line of communication with our clients.
We talked in a previous episode about the local flair that you guys have, the links to the community, the connections to the area. You can feel your passion that you want to help people, that you want them to get better, that you want to help them recover as much money as you can while not burdening them with too much while they're trying to get better. Where does that passion, where does that fire kind of come from for you?
The relief and the joy that people get at the end of the case, when people are just, happy and appreciative that they didn't think their case was worth this much, or when they were given a very low offer and they ended up getting so much more than they thought they would. And, and this is just, unfortunately, this is just also one of those businesses where no matter how much money you get, it's never really going to make it worth it. Right. Nobody ever says, well, even in wrongful death case, even, in 6, 7, 8-figure cases, nobody ever says, well, that was worth it.
Yeah.
If they could go back to 5 seconds before the accident and avoid it, they're gonna do it every time.
Right.
But knowing that we made it easier for them, or at least better for them, or at least better to deal with, to cope with, that's where the passion comes from. The insurance companies, they're bullies. They like to make very low offers, and they like to get out of cases as cheap as they can. And it's our job not to let them bully our clients around.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that process, because like if someone's pretty hurt and recovering, and they haven't hired a lawyer or anything, and is the insurance company at that point, I would imagine, is contacting them, right? Trying to offer them something, making an offer to them. And is that true?
That's true. And in my opinion, my experience, the typical offer is $500. For some reason, people who come into my office, they get injured and it's like, oh, they're offering me $500. And it's like, well, I think your case is worth more than $500.
Wow. What does $500 get you in a medical for medical bills?
Well, remember how it works is if you take that money and you sign a contract, you can never go back and sue them again, whether it was undervalued or not. And they have all the language in their contracts. And this has happened before too, where people are like, hey, I'd like to hire an attorney. And then you find out, and then you start talking and you're like, well, how did this happen? You find out that they've already settled their case. And it's like, well, you guys settled this case for $500. Yeah. Well, we didn't, we've heard it's worth more. Well, it's worth nothing now because it's settled and over with.
It's worth $500 now. Yeah.
For $500. And, so what'll happen is, sometimes they'll offer you $500 plus your medical bills. And then sometimes your medical bills get paid for by your car insurance if you pay for medical payments. So they'll offer you $500 for pain and suffering. And I've said before, pain and suffering is where we get our money. That's where the attorneys get their money. We make more money because we get more on pain and suffering end than you would on your own. And when we go to trial, that's the area that we hammer. That's the area I hammer with the jury. Pain and suffering. What is this worth? What objectively do you as a jury see this case is worth for pain? What's it worth to go through this? What's it worth to? That's where we make our money. Pain and suffering.
I don't know. It seems kind of dirty to like try to push someone into a settlement when they're like, I don't know, when they're recovering, maybe they're on medicine. Like, I don't know. It seems like you're taking advantage, that they're trying to take advantage of their client or of the client.
Yeah, they're trying to do what's best for them. They have a duty to their shareholders or to their company to, just get out of a case as cheap as possible. That's what they do, and they typically don't rush to the hospital and make the offer, but it's, typically within a week, a couple of weeks. I've had a client just a few months ago. The accident happened like 3 months earlier, but she came in and she said she got a $500 offer. We took the case to try to help her, but that's pretty typical.
Yeah, like you said, they're trying to settle for as low as possible.
They're trying to settle for as low as possible, and we're trying to get as much as possible.
Yeah,
we're trying to get more than they want to pay.
So for somebody who gets in an accident and is dealing, whether they're in the hospital or they're dealing with recovery, they get that call from the insurance company. I suppose they hear them out, but there's also like a danger of talking too much, right, to the insurance company. So what do you recommend in that situation? Like, what should they say? What should they avoid saying? Should they say anything at all?
And that's why on your case, especially bigger cases, you need to have an attorney, because anything you say can and will be used against you in court. Okay, it's not just criminal cases, it's every case. And the problem is that they will take something you said the day after an accident, and then 6 months later, you give another statement. And then a year later, you go through and you give a written statement through your interrogatories. And then you go through a deposition, which is several hours where you're asking questions. And then they find those inconsistent statements. And sometimes those inconsistent statements are things that we have to deal with, that they're just either memory lapses or they are incomplete, lacking context, lacking, why did you say this back? Well, this was the day after the accident and I didn't think that was important. Or so the more statements you give, the more chances you give the insurance company to attack your inconsistent statement. And I don't care who you are. At some point, everybody makes an inconsistent statement. Our job is to clean it up. Our job is to clean it up. But why are we going to give them those opportunities and those chances with your case?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's like, it's not easy to remember this in the moment, but God, the best thing you could probably do is thoroughly document or write down everything that you can remember that happened within the accident, like as quick as possible, right? So you have a record of it, or even just a voice note or something.
And I tell people to do that and write it down in that way, and keep track of how you feel, because even though you're in pain today, your pain tomorrow is going to be different. Your pain after, and you may think you're going to remember that, but 6 months from now, when you're better, you're not going to remember the day to day or the week to week. So always keep notes and make a good, and we introduce that as evidence ourselves to show how they felt.
We purposely forget a lot of the bad things, whether it's pain or unfortunate or accidents or unfortunate situations in our life. We don't want to think about that all the time. So our brains naturally, I think, kind of forget things that we don't want to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point too. Even when it comes to fault, a lot of times people forget the trauma of somebody running a red light or a stop sign. And, maybe a lot of times, there's a major accident and you just find yourself and you wake up and you're in the hospital, right? You black out. But then your memory starts to come back to you a few days, few weeks, a while later, and you're like, oh, I do remember this. So those things happen. So if you talk to the insurance company the next day and you kind of don't really remember because you're still concussed, or you were knocked out, you had TBI, traumatic brain injury of some sort, but it starts to come back to you, why do we want to give them a chance to make you look like you're not telling the whole story, or that you're trying to fill in holes, or that you're making stuff up? So why do that?
Yeah, for sure. What do you generally tell people, in that situation when they're, making their first statement, or do you tell people, hey, write things down? You really try to get them to document their case right away?
I tell people to write things down, but they also come to the office and we talk. I interview, and I typically tell people, do not talk until I have a chance to investigate this. And then it's my judgment call as to whether or not I say you should give a statement or not. And if there's an issue with liability, I typically tell them not to talk until we have some type of traffic investigation, get the police report or something, because then they're going to try and get you to say, well, maybe you were are you sure you were on this side of the lane, or that, whatever. They're trying to get you. So I typically don't have people talk. I will give a statement. I will say, this is what my clients tell me. Well, the reason I do that is because anything an attorney says is not evidence. It's I'm relaying this. This is what my client's telling me. They can't use that against you. But sometimes, but then, we do an investigation. It's a case by case basis, whether or not I let clients give a statement. A rear end where the defendant was drunk I'm probably more likely to let you give a statement. So as opposed to some type of lane change or turning movement that requires more investigation.
Well, great advice as always, Josh. And thanks for tuning in to the Moody Lawyer with Attorney Josh Moody. To connect with Josh, visit moodylawyer.com. And please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review if you get a second. Josh, great seeing you again. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. See you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.